Kaido is one of the most well-known and most powerful characters in the entire One Piece verse. He has the honor of being the longest single arc villain in all of One Piece, and also has the honor of being the only character in all of One Piece, so far at least, to beat Luffy 4 times in a row before he was forced to not only learn advanced armament haki, advanced conqueror's haki, but also awaken his devil fruit to become the literal reincarnation of an ancient god in the One Piece universe. So needless to say, the title of strongest creature in the world is very much a title that Kaido earned. One thing I don't really hear a lot of people talk about when it comes to Kaido, however, is just how tragic his character really is. So in today's video, I want to examine what makes Kaido's character so tragic from the perspectives that we see him. I want to start by examining the differences in his life pre-Wano, and then his life while living in Wano. And as always, I want to say thank you guys so much for the support that you've been showing. I always appreciate it. You know, every video I post, I really do hope you enjoy it. And with all that out of the way, let's get it done. So to first truly understand why I believe Kaido is such a tragic character, I believe it's very important to look at him retroactively, you know, looking at his life pre-Wano. And as is normal for many One Piece antagonists at this point, except for maybe like the Holy Knights and I guess kind of Doflamingo, but his past is still kind of tragic too, I guess. I don't know. Kaido's childhood was one of tragedy and misery, obviously. And we know that he was born in the Vodka Kingdom and was forced to join its army at a very young age, where he became their strongest warrior by the age of 10. Shortly thereafter, by the age of 13, the Vodka Kingdom presented Kaido to the world government to pay their heavenly tribute tax. You know, the yearly, or I guess tri-yearly, I can't remember the exact time frame, tax that they have to pay that's usually paid with monetary funds. But I guess the world government is okay with you selling them their strongest, or trading them their strongest warrior child to be used as a weapon, you know? And this obviously started Kaido's hatred of the world government, and rightly so. And unfortunately, this is all we really know concretely about Kaido's childhood, which is a criticism of One Piece and Oda, considering that Kaido was the overarching villain of One Piece's post-time skip era, from Punk Hazard all the way up to Wano, which is like 6 different arcs, which is at this point majority of the time skip. And I'm pretty sure by the time One Piece ends, half of the time skip, because the only arcs in One Piece that we don't really deal with or push forward in terms of beating Kaido is Fishman Island, because that was kind of about Big Mom, I guess, Egghead, because we've beaten Kaido, and Elbaf, because again, we've beaten Kaido, and I guess kind of Whole Cake Island, because that was about Big Mom, but again, half the crew was sent to Wano, so kind of split your attention right there. And this is made up for somewhat during the Rocks flashback, when we get a little bit more into who Kaido was when he was younger. You know, Kaido joined the Rocks Pirates as its youngest member at the age of 15 after being recruited by Whitebeard, or Edward Newgate. And this did cause him to develop something of a brotherly relationship between the both of them. You know, and Kaido, again, being the youngest, looked up to the heavy hitters of the crew. He saw them as unbeatable, and he believed that this, for the most part, was true, you know, and it did hold true until the infamous God Valley incident, you know, the day that all the important figures of the Rogers era, or I guess the transition between the Rocks to Rogers era, truly discovered who was at the top of the world: Emu. And while Zebek was forced to confront Emu before gathering everything he needed to, Kaido was focused on acquiring a powerful devil fruit, as he believed, likely due to Whitebeard and Big Mom's fruits, you know, being as busted as they were, that a powerful devil fruit would carry you to the top of the world. And this is obviously in contrast to his modern day belief of haki trumps all, which is our first hint at his beliefs being broken. Even though Rocks gave Whitebeard and Kaido a chance to leave God Valley, they both decided to stay and help him out of loyalty, because they truly believed in what Rocks was doing, which in the end didn't even mean anything at all. And it's like, can you imagine the day that you finally acquire one of the most powerful devil fruits in the series, literally becoming a mythical dragon, something that you've been hunting for the past at least 6 years at this point, because Kaido was 21. on God Valley. You're essentially one-shotted by the one person you looked up to the most after he was taken over by Emu. This was the beginning of where I think Kaido's belief system was being broken. Not only was the thing that he had tried so hard to acquire for, again, the past 6 years essentially shown to be irrelevant at this point, not even 5 minutes after getting it, but the man that you saw as the strongest person in the world was taken over by some other entity that you had no idea existed at all. Kaido had to watch the closest thing that he had to a family be broken up by the world government that he hated so much. And again, they forced his idol to do it. Then to further rub salt into the wound, Rocks was defeated by Garp and Roger, somebody that I guess Kaido kind of saw as lesser than Rocks, which kind of holds true because they did have to team up to beat him. But there were two people who didn't even have devil fruits, forcing him to realize that the true power hierarchy of the world can be determined in more ways than one, and it's not through a devil fruit. You can get up there with a devil fruit, but it's not taking you to the top. And there are aspects of Kaido that I don't believe people, really talk about enough. Everything he believed was taken away from him, all in the same day, essentially. And after this, Kaido would be captured by the world government 18 different times, as we are told, post-time skip. Most of them, he willingly gave himself up, either out of boredom or in an attempt to kill himself, which, if you didn't know, is an obvious sign of depression, And the earliest time we know of him being captured is at the age of 25 when he met King on Punk Hazard. And while tragic upbringings are nothing new in One Piece, before he even set out on his own adventure, Kaido was forced to see his place within the world, and this obviously affected his life, I believe, post Wano, which is what I want to explore in the next section of this video. So I do want to say that I am skipping the Oden and Yamato flashback, as I don't really think it adds much to the idea of Kaido's life being tragic. I guess you could argue Yamato's childhood and how he treated them is kind of tragic, but not really in my eyes. But getting into it though, the first time we hear about Kaido being active in the current One Piece timeline is during Marineford, when he heard about Whitebeard's assault on the world government's base. Which at the time we all thought it was out of malicious intent, looking to take advantage of the confusion to overthrow everything, when he was trying to go to Marineford. But looking back with the knowledge of what we know now about God Valley, Kaido was really just going there to try to help his older brother get his son back. So could you imagine just how tragic it would have been, or was, when he heard the news of his death, knowing that if he had shown up, he would still be alive? And you can't really say what if he'd showed up, because it is a fact that one Yonko crew is enough to fight the entire force of the Marines to at least a stalemate. So two of them could have easily won the fight. And the next time we see Kaido after this, which is, the first time we see Kaido after this, the time that we actually see Kaido after this, is him jumping from a sky island, likely with the hopes of being able to kill himself, where he makes the Kaido shaped hole. And I do want to address this before I continue, where a lot of people always ask the question, why doesn't Kaido just jump into the sea if he wants to die so badly? And it's because he's obsessed with the idea of an honorable death, one that can be remembered, just like how Roger and Whitebeard did. He says that Roger and Whitebeard did it right. The difference between all of these characters being that only one of them is actively seeking the goal of dying. Kaido hopes to be the one who is meant to find the One Piece. He hopes that he is Joy Boy, the key word here being hope. He has a backup goal, however, that he will be satisfied with if he doesn't achieve his primary goal of finding the One Piece or starting that great war, which is the antithesis of how a lot of characters in One Piece who are destined to achieve something think, or even the ones who just think that they're destined to achieve something are. Think about Luffy. Imagine if all the times he said he wants to find the One Piece, but at the same time being okay with just being a Yonko. He's like, I'm gonna be the king of the pirates, but I'm okay if I'm just a Yonko for the rest of my life. Where even somebody like Eustace Kid has more determination and ambition than Kaido, which is obviously one of the reasons why they beat Kaido. Becoming the pirate king to Luffy is just the first step to his true goal. It furthers him. Kaido's decision to stay in Wano for all those years could be seen as being content with everything that he has achieved. For a long time, Kaido thought he was Joy Boy. He saw himself as the coming of the new world, believing it so much that he wanted to force the Great War to prove it to himself. Eventually though, he realized it wasn't him, so he became okay with the idea of being the stepping stone for the real Joy Boy to arise. And people always say that Luffy defeats his opponents by crushing their dreams, but I'd argue that with Kaido, he didn't really have many dreams left, and if anything, that would carry him into the future if he had beaten Luffy. You know, if he had started that Great War, I guess he could be seen as the true Joy Boy, and maybe then he would have gotten back his spark and will to live. But you know, the idea of having an alternate goal in One Piece just isn't very One Piecey. It's not true to, you know, how you achieve success in this world. You know, Shanks doesn't have an alternative goal. Roger never had an alternative goal. Luffy never has an alternative goal. Zoro doesn't have an alternative goal. Sanji, nobody in One Piece who's going to achieve anything has an alternate goal, which is why I truly think Kaido was destined for failure. I think Kaido, this idea of an alternate goal is a reflection of all the things that he had went through throughout his life. He realized that you can have this primary goal and seek it with all your heart, and it can never happen. It can still never happen because the strongest person that he ever knew, the two strongest people that he ever knew, I guess Whitebeard did achieve his goal of starting a family. So he did achieve that part. But Rox's real goal of overthrowing the world government never happened. And Kaido, I believe he internalized that so much throughout his time, and sure, he grew and became one of the most powerful things on the entire planet, but all that power, and he still didn't believe that he was the one who was meant to change everything. Looking at Kaido's life as a whole, it makes sense how he arrived where he was. Everything he believed was stripped away from him time and time again, and he watched the people he believed were at the top of the world, the people he looked up to, die, leaving him behind. He kept going out of principle, in my opinion. Maybe he held out on the hope that if he kept pushing, he would find his purpose, but any dream Kaido had was crushed long before he showed up in Wano. He was a drunk, recluse, who was depressed, looking for ways to end his own life. His ultimate and final goal was the hope that somebody would actually be able to kill him, but in a noteworthy way. He wanted to be remembered in a noteworthy way, not for the life that he lived, but by the way that he died. Think of it this way. Imagine you rationalize and become okay with dying after having this goal that you've been seeking for so long, but you're like, okay, man, you know what, whatever, I'm okay with dying. You know, saying that if I die in a shootout, I'll be content with my life. I'll be happy with my life. That doesn't sound tragic and depressing to you? Like, that's how Kaido's life really amounted to. And you know, that is the video. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really do. And please keep on commenting what you guys think. You know, you guys leave dissertations down there, but I read them every time. I'm reading them in comments and I'm liking. So leave a like, you know, subscribe as always. It really does help the channel out. We're like 7 subscribers away from hitting 1100, which is crazy because we hit 1,000 last week. So thank you guys so much. And you know, don't be like Kaido. No matter what happens to you in life, be like Luffy and be so delusional about your dreams and follow them. Or, you know, be like me and be so crazy about your dreams like Luffy and follow them. But I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one, and take care. Love you. Good. Bye.